back to 996. The Howl 50 games in the books for this season. Coyotes go 3-6-1 in these stretch of 10 games. Not their worst stretch. Last stretch from games 30 to 40, they went 3-7, so a little bit better than 7 regulation losses. They started off these first 10 games losing 3 straight. That was like the lowest point of the season so far. They're coming off 6 straight regulation losses from the previous 10 games. They started these stretch of 10 games losing 3 straight. A couple of them were close games. You know, they had that back-to-back against Minnesota and Winnipeg, losing 2-1 in both of those games. Tried a different strategy, more stingy defense, but that sort of neutered their offense in those games. You had a couple blowouts, by my definition, losing by 4 or more goals. Back-to-back 4-0 losses to Washington and Dallas, even though, you know, the goalies didn't play terribly in those losses. Their shot totals were so high that they managed to get almost near 900 save percentage. But some also good games thrown in there as well. They got wins against Detroit, that win against Vegas where they introduced their new third alternate jersey, and then that win against the St. Louis Blues, which was a perfect, flawless victory for the Coyotes. Even that Anaheim game Saturday night wasn't a terrible performance, losing 2-1 in overtime, but a loss nonetheless. So let's get into the numbers. Their goal scoring, like I said, being outshot twice in these stretch of 10 games, 4-0. It goes down quite a bit. They're at 28th in the league in terms of goals for per game. Goals against per game has actually went down. So even though they lost back-to-back 4-0 games, those back-to-back 2-1 games, winning 3-1 against Vegas, getting a shutout against St. Louis, brings their goals against per game down to 3.5. Still a bit too high. You want goals against per game to be below 3. But, you know, in a tank season, you're never going to get that. And goals for per game, you want that to hit 3. And even a tank year, you could manage to get up to 3 goals per game. They've been close. I think, you know, they're in the 2.8s from games 20 to 30, but it's been down since then. Power play continues to nosedive, and special teams in general, 18.5%, 26th in the league. Penalty killing, 27th in the league, even though it's up from their previous stretch of games. It's sitting at 74.2%. But yeah, special teams in the dumps. I remember, or we all remember, the first 10 games of the season, 15 games this season. The broadcast team was hyping their special team numbers, top 10 in both categories. Now, unfortunately, both of them are near the bottom of the league. You would want the penalty kill to be higher because penalty killing is not based on talent. It's just based on good coaching and players willing to block shots and play the systems to the best of their abilities. Power play, I understand you need more talent to have a really good power play. But I would want to see the penalty killing in these last stretch of 32 games. Increase the penalty killing up, you know, maybe go close to 80% at least. And, you know, just have a good stretch of games where the penalty killing plays well. We're starting to see Schmaltz in the penalty killing a lot in that game. You know, I would say maybe Vegas. Schmaltz had 2 breakaway or 2 really good shorthanded chances. One of them was a 2-on-1. The other one was a breakaway. So Schmaltz on the penalty killing. I don't see Keller too often on the penalty kill, but, you know, those are like not mainstays on the penalty kill. You want your big body grinders to be on the penalty kill, but Andre Tourigny likes to mix it up. Last year, Keller was on the PK a lot of times, so he's not afraid to throw skilled guys out there. Just get them engaged, and maybe that's been the recipe for success for Schmaltz since he's been the best performing player in these past 10 games. We'll get into that a bit later. Save percentage has been up. You know, that shutout will help. Almost at 900. I thought that they would have got 900 last stretch of 10 games, but obviously, you know, they lost like 11 out of 12 games. But finally, they're near there. They're 19th in the league, so they're not even like really, really bad in terms of save percentage. They're 19th in the league, so there's a lot of teams below them in save percentage, which is remarkable considering how low they are in the standings. So 899, good performances by both goalies these past 10 games. Both goalies splitting 5 games each. Both goalies had 4 out of those 5 games above save percentage 900. So goaltending has been really good the past 10 games. Like I said, in some of those games, the offense wasn't there. I would say about 4 of them, the 2 blowouts, and Winnipeg, Minnesota back-to-back, the offense just wasn't there. But the goalies played well. Even, losing 4-0, they had a lot of rubber hit against them, but managed to pump up their numbers to look respectable. Shooting percentage, it's been going down. I believe it was above 11% near the beginning of the season. It's been going down after each 10-game mark. They still sit at 12th in the league at 10.10% shooting percentage. Shots on goal per game, dead last in the league. It's been up almost a half shot per game. They're at 25.7 shots per game. Like I said, when it seems like they get, they near 30 shots per game or get over 30 shots per game, more often than not, they're losing the game. And then when they get, around 25 or less shots per game, it's that rope-a-yoke Coyotes style hockey where they manage to eke out a victory in those games. So, the Andre Tourigny system, you know what you're getting. 25 shots per game. They'll score on about 10% of those shots. Special teams, not too good. Inconsistent. Sometimes they'll win you a game. Sometimes they'll lose a game because they couldn't get the power play clicking or they're in a bad stretch of penalty killing. So, we really kind of know what Andre Tourigny's system is nowadays. Considering it's over a season and a half of looking and watching his system. Next year, hopefully, with actual talent on the team and they're not purposely tanking, maybe we see some of these trends under his system start to go the other way. But as it stands, pretty much all these metrics are the exact same as they were last season. Even though the personnel and the players have switched over, like, obviously Eriksson, Galchenyuk, Ladd, Beagle, they're not on the team. They injected younger talent, but still the numbers kind of are the same, which is a bit worrisome, but I'll reserve judgments until we actually see a real NHL team on the ice. Face-offs, a little bit higher, still 31st in the league, not dead last anymore. I think Chicago or Vancouver is dead last in face-offs. Hits per game has been down, starting to track that. Just want to see where this team is at in terms of hits. I want to see where they are in the standings. 8th in the league, top 10 in the league in hitting. That's what I want to see. That's what Bill Armstrong has been touting since he's come to Arizona. And so if the hits per game was like in the bottom 10 of the league, I would be scratching my head because on the one hand, Bill Armstrong talks, he wants to be a hard team to play against, wants his team to work hard. So if I don't see that in the numbers, that's a disconnect that I don't want to see. But thankfully, we have a connection there. Top 10 in the league in hitting. Unfortunately, their fighting has been down. They're 11th in the league now. Only 1 fight in the past 10 games. Usually the Coyotes are good for 3 or 4 fights every 10-game stretch. But just 1 fight, I believe it went to Josh Brown. O'Brien's been sorely missing in this lineup. Even last night, or not last night, whenever you're watching this, Saturday night against the Ducks, Trevor Zegras was getting under the skin of the Coyotes, goading them, even though himself, Zegras, did some pretty unsportsmanlike plays with the cross-checking on an injured player and maybe running in his mouth. We don't know exactly what he says yet. But, if O'Brien was in the lineup, I'm sure he would have picked a fight with someone. And I know Anaheim's not a fighting team, so maybe no one was willing to answer the bell. But I wouldn't say the Coyotes were soft in that game. They were getting to scrums after every whistle. It was a heated game. McBain was, getting to scrums after whistles. Like I said, Stetcher got heated against Zegras. It wasn't like the Coyotes folded and let the Anaheim Ducks run all over them. It was a heated, spirited battle. But yeah, there weren't any fights. I don't think there was any takers on the Anaheim side to fight. We can't always rely on Josh Brown to fight. It seemed like Josh Brown wanted to score a goal against Anaheim Saturday night instead of fighting, and you're not going to see Cassian fight. Krause, maybe not as into it as I would have hoped, but he's just coming back from an injury. I don't know what that injury was, so maybe that's preventing him from throwing, his fists around. And so, O'Brien's been missing for a really long time, like I would say 2 months now. And you kind of don't notice that they're missing O'Brien because he's not a goal scorer. You're not looking to him for offense, but just that sandpaper, those fights, those big hits. O'Brien used to get that crowd going and jumping at Mullet Arena whenever he would lay a big hit. So it's been a while. I would be excited if O'Brien draws into the lineup and he comes back from injury. Hopefully replaces Zach Cassian, who's kind of dragging down Matias Michelli since he's come back from injury. And so, yeah, would not too down on the team for not fighting a lot. I'd rather the hits stay above, top 10 in the league. If I start to see the hits go down, then I'll start to be worried. Fighting, it's fun, it's exciting. I think Josh Brown is the best fighter the Coyotes have had in over a decade. But, he doesn't have to fight every game. There doesn't have to be a fight every game. Pick your battles. Hopefully you pick a battle that you win. Usually Brown demolishes his opponent, which I love to see. So maybe with O'Brien coming in the lineup, we'll see when that is. The fighting number will go up. And then we go to the top 5 scorers for the Coyotes this season. Keller at 41 points in 50 games. You see that separation. Keller's just on another level. A bona fide best player on the team. No offense to Schmaltz or Chychrun, who've only played 34 games played. So the fact that they're actually in the top 5 for the Coyotes, even though they've only played 34 games, whereas Keller's played 50, it's pretty good that they're in the top 5 and they have 25 and 28 points for both of them. Keller, he's only had 4 points in the past 10 games, maybe 5, but he was quiet. There was a stretch of games where the top line was just quiet. I would say it was the Winnipeg, Minnesota, Washington, and Dallas. That stretch of games, the top line just wasn't getting anything done. But, the whole team wasn't doing anything offensively either. But you do rely on your top line to drive the team. They're the engine of the offense. So if they're having an off night, it's hard to rely on that secondary scoring to, ignite the offense. So he's dropping down from a point per game pace. Hopefully, the last couple of games he had a hat trick against Vegas. Schmaltz had a hat trick against St. Louis. So hopefully that gets them going and they get to go on a good, consistent streak moving forward. The past 10 games, we've seen Barrett Hayden get that number 1 center spot, taking over Travis Boyd. I thought he's fit in well. Again, he's only had 4 points in the past 10 games. Pretty much everyone's only had 5 or 4 points except for Schmaltz, who's had 8 points in his past 10 games. So Schmaltz has flourished in the past 10, whereas the rest of the team kind of middle of the road, average, mediocre type of hockey. But they're starting to get it going near the end of that 10-game stretch. So hopefully they keep it going. Maybe the last time Gostisbehere is on this board. He's injured until the trade deadline. And then we expect Gostisbehere to get traded, hopefully for a first-round pick. I say expected because there's chances people don't get traded. You never know these days. I'm doing a trade deadline video maybe this week or next week where, half the league, they have no cap room. So there's going to be a lot of cap movement if teams want to acquire a player like Gostisbehere or Jacob Chychrun. So a lot of movement. Coyotes have cap space. So if they want to, have a good trading partner, they can take some bad contracts back. I'll list the potential bad contracts the Coyotes could receive in those trades, but sad to see that this might be the last time we've seen Gostisbehere dressed as a Coyote. Obviously, the pipe dream is he re-signs in free agency with the Coyotes, but you never know. It could happen. It happened with Vermette, a lot of seasons ago, but it's rare it happens. But I'm happy with how Gostisbehere performed. It was an interesting situation that Philadelphia paid us in draft picks to take Gostisbehere off their hands, and then he excelled at being a power play number 1 quarterback specialist, being that offensive defenseman, being that good puck mover up the ice. I said in my previous video, seeing Chychrun and Gostisbehere together just reminded me of the good days of Yandel and Ekman-Larsson. So it's sad that we might not see that again, but you never know. Things could happen. They could not trade either one of them. There's a chance. But I expect and would hope that both of them are traded for first-round picks. And then I don't think I talked about Krause, but he's still there. 28 points in 45 games played, so he also hasn't played the full 50. And then going to goaltenders, finally we start to see some good statistics from Ingram. Almost at the 900 save percentage, and then 3.59. It was above 4 for a longest time. His win-loss record is really bad, but considering he's got, almost league average, I would say, save percentage, even though he's 3-11-2. It's pretty remarkable. I like Ingram. I've been saying this since the beginning of the season. He had that one stinker against Edmonton, but the whole team had a terrible game against Edmonton. It was the end of their 14-game road trip, and that nosedived his numbers. The coaching staff lost, desire to throw Ingram in net. It was so hard for the coaching staff to play Ingram. Now, the past 10 games are rotating Vejmelka and Ingram, and we see that both goalies are performing well. So maybe that's a good recipe. I've been saying it this whole time. You got to rotate your goalies. Ingram is a good goalie. You got to give him a chance. Some of these games he gets thrown to the wolves. That's not really respectful for Ingram, and it's not fair on him. He's a good goaltender, and finally everyone's seeing it now. He's competent. He's a good backup. If he keeps these performances up, like I said, the past 4 out of 5 games, he's had over 900 save percentage. Down the stretch here, the next month, as we go near the trade deadline, if Vejmelka and Ingram put up these consistent numbers and good goaltending, there's a team like the Los Angeles Kings who need goaltending. They could grab one of them. I don't think Vejmelka gets traded. I'm not on that boat. There's also Canadian media saying that Lawson Crouse is going to go to the Maple Leafs. I don't believe that either. Just a waste of time for writing journalists need you to go to their websites. But for me, I don't think Vejmelka and Ingram will get traded. I would entertain trading Ingram. If Ingram gets a good number of games here, like I already mentioned, that's a fine trade piece. We don't need Ingram for the future. I would like to hold on to Vejmelka, but I'm totally okay with doing what we did with Wedgwood. Trade him for a 4th round conditional pick. If it helps the team, it turns into a 3rd round pick. And then we'll see from there. So hopefully Ingram gets a good number of starts. Even if both goalies stay on the team, I'm good with that. I'm comfortable with either one of them being in net. And I don't have feelings either way when I see their names in the starting lineup for the team. So very comfortable with both of them. To be honest, I think Vejmelka has more off nights than Ingram. I feel like Ingram, if he has an off night, it's because the team had an off night. Whereas Vejmelka, he could have an off night and the team doesn't have an off night and loses the game for the team. I rarely see a game where Ingram is playing bad and the team is playing amazing. I haven't seen that yet. But, that's not fair to Vejmelka because Vejmelka has played, 34 games out of 50. So obviously he plays a bulk of games. We've been rarely seeing Ingram prior to these past 10 games in the net consistently. So moving forward, we see Ingram in net more. Maybe there's games like that where the Coyotes play good in front of him, but he has an off night. But happy with them. And then we go to the tank race. Now we're going to finally start concentrating on the tank race. I would say that Saturday night they probably should have lost in regulation, but a loss either way is good in my books. I really, didn't really care if they won Saturday night. I wasn't expecting a win. I think I more wanted them to lose. It was an important game to lose. So losing in overtime, it's fine. Regulation would have been better. But Columbus is in first with 33 points, 50 games played. Chicago with the least amount of games played. So Coyotes got 2 games above Chicago. So if Chicago wins, they're on a good streak, Chicago. They've won 7 of their last 11 maybe. So if they win both of their games to take them to the 50 games played mark, that's 4 points, and that could be tied with Arizona. So Arizona's only 5 points ahead of last place. In terms of the Western teams, which 4 of them are Western teams, which is funny, it's close. Anaheim, Arizona, Chicago, they're really close. You can't blame the Coyotes for winning all those games. They're close. They're in the race. This is probably the best you could ask for, really. Playing competitive hockey, winning a lot of games that we want them to win against good teams like Boston, the Maple Leafs twice, the Islanders twice, St. Louis, Vegas. Winning against Vegas is always good as a Coyotes fan. So they haven't played themselves out of the race. It's still very much anyone's game. San Jose, 51 games played, 41 points. So they're in the mix as well. I see Vancouver fans and Montreal fans, saying, oh, we got to tank. It's funny to see. It's cute as well. They don't know what tanking is this season. Montreal knew it last season, but I think they're too far ahead in the standings. If Vancouver decides to sell off all their players, maybe they come in this race. But I think it's going to be between these 5 teams. And the Coyotes play Chicago February 10th, so that's another game. You know, you could lose and no one would bat an eye. You know, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, maybe take a night off. You know, you could lose that game and Coyotes fans won't be upset with you. So that's it for me. You know, it started off bad, but I liked the last stretch of games. It's good to see Michelli back. I want to see him with better line mates. Great to see Krause back. Unfortunate to see Gostisbehere get injured and maybe we never see him play for the Coyotes again. I'm excited for Moser and Valimaki to be relied upon a bit more and get more important minutes. Gunther, he's playing pretty well. Just maybe need to see a little bit more from him. Maybe on the power play, take a few more shots, but I'm fine with him. Maybe I would put Michelli back with Bukestad and Krause. I think that line was just magic and provided the Coyotes with that secondary scoring and secondary offensive generating momentum that the Coyotes need. It can't always be the top line. I just feel like the Gunther, Bukestad, Krause line has a few off nights, more than if Michelli was in Gunther's spot. But then I also don't want Gunther with Cassian and McBain either. So, like I said in my previous video, it's a tough decision for the coaching staff. They have a lot of talent and not much room in the top 6. So hopefully they figure it out. They figured it out with Hayden, so I'm sure there'll be some movement there. And Valimaki signed a 1-year contract for $1 million. That happened in the past 10 games. No trades the past 10 games, but I'm sure the next 10-game stretch, we're going to start to see some domino falls, and I'm excited for that. So that's it for me. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.